Good afternoon and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, starting at the intersection to build an Internet of Cities. My name is Janneke van der Zee. I'm the Managing Director of ITS Canada. And you can reach me via email at janneke@itscanada.ca. I'll be doing a few introductions today, followed by a presentation that will last about 45 minutes. After the presentation, please submit your questions in the questions panel. And then my co-host, Matt, will redirect the questions as necessary. A little bit more about ITS Canada. ITS Canada, we are the hub for mobility technologies. Mobility technologies enable the safe, efficient, and reliable movement of goods and people. The hub is the place where the needs of the Canadian transportation system connect with the ideas, technologies, and capabilities of our members. ITS Canada is the hub where challenges meet solutions. Diversity, inclusion, and equality for all are ingrained in the DNA of ITS Canada. Together, we promote, encourage, and create a culture which supports and celebrates diverse voices of our members. We embrace our differences in race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. When we say we are the hub for mobility technologies, we mean the hub for everyone. We support mobility technologies through championing the benefits, fostering and promoting innovation, integrating the expertise, products, and services of our members, like Miovision, Telus and Stinson ITS, for example, who are participating on the webinar today. And lastly, enabling communication for learning and collaboration. And with that, I'm introducing my co-host, Matt. As the Director of Product Marketing at Miovision, Matthew is responsible for providing strategic direction for Miovision's products and services, in addition to presenting the brand worldwide. He's passionate about data, artificial intelligence, and how ITS technology impacts cities and their citizens. Matthew and his wife became parents to a beautiful baby boy in May 2020. And with that, I am going to make Matt my co-host. Matt,
Awesome.
over to you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to, can you make Shannon the co-host for me, please, Janneke? Perfect, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Janneke. It's genuinely a pleasure to be here, and thank you, ITS Canada, for your continued support and your support of your members, like us, the ones here today. So it's my great pleasure to be joined today by a really great panel of my colleagues and friends and collaborators here in the Smart City space. So let me do some quick introductions to folks that we have on the line. So first, I have Nadeem with me. Nadeem is the Director of Telus Insights and Smart Cities team within the IoT and Insights division at Telus. He holds a Bachelor of Engineering and Systems Engineering from the University of Waterloo. Nadeem is a recognized practice expert in telecom services, extracting value from data and solving complex business problems. With over 15 years of experience in telecommunications and consulting roles, Nadeem uses his knowledge to create cutting-edge solutions for Telus business and public sector customers. He's the founder of Telus Insights, a team focused on turning data into valuable insights that empower businesses and government organizations to make smarter, more informed decisions with confidence. Nadeem, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Matt.
We also have on the line Brian. Brian is with Stinson ITS. Brian Barg is an account executive with a division of Stinson Owlite. He's been with the company 5 years and in the transportation industry for over 10. He specializes in high technology with a focus on vehicle detection, traffic data collection, and pedestrian safety systems. Brian has been at the forefront of driving interest and adoption of Miovision trafficking across Canada for the past 3 years. As a senior project manager, he led development and installation of the Miovision and Download DSRC system in the city of Stratford. He has a 21-year-old son and is an avid technical scuba diver, diving year-round, including under the ice in caves in Mexico and Florida. Brian, welcome to the webinar. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you very much, Matt.
You're very welcome. We also have with us Dan Matheson, who is the mayor of the city of Stratford, and Delia Campbell, who is the VP of IT for Festival Hydro, I know, Dan, you're on the line. Welcome to the webinar, and we're really looking forward to hearing your point of view and your insight here today as well.
Thanks so much, Matt.
And we'll let Brian give you a further introduction here when we get to that section of our webinar. So with that, Shannon, can you move to the next slide for me? So a little bit about today's agenda. We've got a really great swath of presenters today. I'm going to quickly talk about the Internet of Cities and what that concept means to us. Then we're going to move into the Telus, Miovision, and Stinson approach and how we believe that we're building these smart Internet of Cities together. Then we'll cap it off with Stratford and Festival Hydro going into what that looks like in the real world. So rather than just have PowerPoints and talk tracks today, we have some really fantastic guests with us who can make this into real examples, and of course help us quantify the citizen and impact that we're trying to, of course, drive out of all the things that we do from an ITS perspective. So with that, I'm actually going to hop into our first poll question, and I'll throw that up right now. So you should see it on your screen, and the question is, are you a member of ITS Canada? So you can now submit your answer, and we'll collect those responses, and then we will close out that poll and we'll share it out. All right, so we are at about 60%. Oh, there we go. We're up to 75% voted, which is perfect. So I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to share those results. So you can see, it looks like we do have a good amount of ITS Canada members, either you personally or your organization, and then we have a few that aren't. So if you're not, as an ITS member, I highly encourage that you join. It's a great organization, and you'll get to hang out with folks like us that are on the call today. It's a great organization. So I'll go ahead and hide that, and we'll get back to our content. So let's talk a little bit about the Internet of Cities and what that actually means. So when we here at Miovision and working with our partners, when we think of the Internet of Cities, what we tend to think about is starting with our customers to solve a very specific problem. And typically that could mean something like, hey, I need a detection system. Hey, I want to start looking at data. Hey, I want to improve safety in my city. But they're very specific questions. And what we end up doing is working with our city partners to really zero in and solve one specific problem. And that's typically done in something like a pilot. And it's really done to help them understand, the city understand what the technology is capable of and how we could deploy it at a wider scale. And what we end up finding is a lot of our cities go through this transformation where they start small and they end up with this large or network-wide deployment that is, fairly not only advanced in terms of ITS technology, but forms the basis of what really is their smart city strategy, or really brings the internet, to city or to work for their city. And rather than think of smart cities or the Internet of Cities as being this giant, massive thing that comes one day, I like to think of, a lot of people describe smart cities as being like the stork. They don't really know how the baby gets there, but one day they just all of a sudden a baby arrives and the stork brought it. I think that's how a lot of people think about the Internet of Cities and think about smart cities. It's just going to magically arrive one day. When the truth is, all the smart city and the Internet of Cities is built on these initiatives that build over time, solve real world problems, and grow and meet the challenges of the growing city networks. And that's why we've partnered with Stinson and with Telus to solve these problems, is because, as we're going to talk about in this topic today, we all solve different parts of that equation, and we all find a different way to help those cities get to a specific outcome. Now, if you look at the ways that the smart city could start or could evolve, you can go back and look at something like, AOL. Now, AOL was great when it first came out. Everyone loved it. I think a lot of people were on it. But what it meant was, for a lot of people who first got the internet through AOL, was that the internet was AOL. There was no internet and AOL. It was, I logged in through AOL, my browser was AOL, my search engine was AOL, like the internet was AOL. And this worked for a time, but quickly what the market found was that really wasn't the way that they wanted it to work. People wanted an open system. People wanted to be able to log on to an open browser or have their choices of browser. Once they got into the browser, they wanted their choice of search engine. Once they went onto their choice of search engine, it was about different email systems. And really, it became going away from a locked-in, closed ecosystem like AOL to an open, broad ecosystem that you would call something like the internet. And what we strive to be, and what the city of internets and the smart city future is, it's not the AOL, it's not vendor lock-in and closed ecosystems. The future of smart cities is very much about the World Wide Web and building a comparable system to the World Wide Web, where we're all working under open standards and open protocols. There's open and known ways of doing things. And once a user is online, they can use the smart city in a very tangible way to come to outcomes, and you're not locked into a closed ecosystem. And we really think that we need to take this approach to smart cities. And we think that this approach to smart cities allows for far more innovation, far more different kinds of problems to be solved. So how do you do this in a more practical way? So we think there's three key founding principles to being able to build a smart city, starting at the intersection. Number one is to think about data governance, and this is huge. A lot of our customers, this is something that they are either building plans around or have existing plans that we adhere to. But the idea is that our infrastructure, in our case, our cameras are always collecting data, and some of that data will be sensitive. It could be something like travel time, but some of it might be like video itself. So you really need to have a plan about who it's going to be shared with, where it's going to be stored, how long it will be stored, how long will that data be kept. And then you need to be able to demonstrate to your citizens that collecting that data and having that data actually produces tangible outcomes and benefits to them. And having that in place early provides you a very strong starting place to be able to put together the case for your citizens and for everyone that's really interested in privacy and data, to show why you're doing things, and then the steps you're going to take towards actually protecting their information, their data, and their privacy. The second thing we think is really critical is to choose an open system. So not the AOL, we don't want to be the AOL, but we want to be the open internet. And we want to make sure that everything that a city needs to build on top of our infrastructure is by default open, and by default shareable, and by default expandable. So what a city buys today can be used for other applications in the future. The final thing is we really think that cities need to be built in partnership with companies who can support your evolution. And choosing vendors that are prepared to work with you as you progress and prepared to evolve with you as your needs change is really, really critical. And with that, I'm very happy to introduce our first partner today, which is Telus. And Telus is going to talk a little bit about their approach to this system, and starting with the art of the possible here in terms of what they bring to the smart city ecosystem.
Thanks, Matt. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you're good, Nadeem.
Oh, great. All right. So, yeah, Telus has a very similar approach to, kind of working with municipalities in order to solve their most pressing challenges. We're making investments, developing capabilities, and creating partnerships like the one we've, created with Miovision and Stinson, that help us focus on, kind of shared goals of creating a better quality of life for residents and visitors, for pursuing economic competitiveness to attract industry and talent, and fostering an environmentally conscious focus on sustainability. And all of our smart city solutions take a privacy by design and security by design approach that address these important concerns. And I think while Matt provided an excellent overview of things to consider when kind of selecting solutions and trying to solve some of these problems. And there are several capabilities today that help municipalities solve very specific challenges around kind of reducing congestion by improving traffic flow, enhancing citizen safety by enabling kind of measurement and of multimodal traffic at the intersection, using data and insights to understand kind of population insights in a privacy-preserving manner, and kind of providing transparency and accountability to both citizens and authorities using fleet management services for things like winter operations, park maintenance, waste and recycling as an example. All of those solutions are great and provide very tangible benefits. But I think they can provide, even more value when outputs from those solutions are combined and layered together. And bringing data from devices, vehicles, and intersections together can help to unlock even more benefits, like optimizing public transit, optimizing supply chain. We know that Stratford has invested heavily in kind of becoming a test bed for connected vehicles, right? And so by combining all of these capabilities together, it allows cities to unlock even more benefits and to really go beyond where we've ever thought we could. And it's extremely important to ensure that privacy and security are at the forefront, because we all want to make sure that all data that is used is being used respectfully, in that we continue to have the trust and engagement from citizens. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Nadeem. So we're going to just hop into another poll question here to break things up. And the second one is, we're just interested about how you heard about this webinar today. So go ahead and have your feedback in there, whether it was through the email or through the website or online. Please go ahead and submit your response, and we'll close up the poll. So it looks like we've got the majority of people here, so I'll go ahead and close it out and share the results. So it looks like the vast majority came through email today, but a few on the website and on Facebook and LinkedIn, and a few invited by your colleagues. So I believe Yannicka as well will have a recording of this online as well. So if you're forwarding this around and you want to send this webinar to additional colleagues, I believe Yannicka will make that easy. Go ahead and hide that. So thank you, Nadeem. And I think it's really great. The products and services and what Telus brings to the table is absolutely invaluable to cities. And at Miovision, we couldn't be happier to be partnering with you on bringing this technology to be solving these problems. A little bit, speak just briefly on what we would consider the Miovision solution and what Stratford has installed before we get to Stratford as an example. But Miovision is really focused on bringing cameras, connectivity, and artificial intelligence to the intersection to help cities manage traffic. And all these technologies that we're bringing here are really have been developed over the course of about 14 years in our corporate history, going back to our first product, which was a portable data collection device meant to capture traffic studies using video. What we're going to be talking about today in terms of Stratford is our permanent solution, and this is our ITS solution. We call it Miovision Traffic Link. And going back to kind of the internet analogy, Shannon, can I get you to go to the next slide for me, please? Going back to the internet analogy, this is what we consider our smartphone of the intersection. So unlike other systems where maybe you need a different piece of hardware technology for every single use case, we have a common piece of hardware platform. This is what we call Traffic Link hardware. And then we have our software applications. And our goal is to really be the smartphone of the intersection. So once you buy our hardware once, every single use case that you're doing on top is simply just a software addition. And just like you wouldn't, you don't buy a different iPhone for every single app you want to use, we don't think you should have to buy different traffic hardware or traffic appliances for every single use case you want to deploy in your city either. We want you to be able to buy a single point system and then be able to expand that to many use cases and different software applications, both our software applications, but also the software applications of those of our partners, including that of Telus and that of Stinson as well. A quick little kind of introduction about how our system works. We do have components within the traffic cabinet itself. So you can see the traffic cabinet. We do have our camera, which goes on the mast arm there. And then we have our SmartLink and our SmartSense units that go inside the traffic cabinet. The SmartLink itself connects to the infrastructure and also has connectivity. That's what leverages the Telus network and provides the data. And then our SmartSense is essentially a computer that goes at the side of the road that does all the computation, so all the machine learning and all the smarts that kind of happen at the intersection in real time are all done on that SmartSense. And you can see the video there in the bottom corner. That's a video from the city of Toronto, where you can see, just the advanced capabilities of the pedestrian vehicle, both presence and counting functionality that's made possible by this advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence. Extremely granular and extremely accurate in terms of what it's able to do by having that computational power right at the intersection. We then connect all that to the traffic link cloud, where we turn all that into data, and then we actually turn that into a machine learning feedback loop that then goes back to the intersections and teaches those intersections essentially new tricks. So we really, our goal is to build this open system that exists at the intersection that is being leveraged by all sorts of partners, but that is also continuously learning, adopting, and evolving by leveraging the latest in machine learning and advanced AI tools. So with that being said, and to just make sure we're not being super abstract, I'm now gonna hand things over to Stinson, who's going to talk about both the solutions and the services that they provide, but also what it then means to deploy some of this technology using the tools offered by Telus and Miovision at a city level, with Stratford as an example. So welcome, Brian, and we'll have you talk about Stinson now.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So Stinson ITS is a division of Stinson Owlite, as was mentioned earlier. We're a Canadian-owned, Ontario-based company founded in 1961 with over 90 employees and now 58 plus years in operation. Stinson's core business is traffic signs and devices. The ITS division was founded 6 years ago, and we currently have 6 offices, 4 in Ontario, 1 in Alberta, and 1 in Quebec. So we're pretty much nationwide. The Stinson ITS department has expanded to over 11 people, comprised of account managers, project managers, technicians, and an electrical engineer. And as you can see on the slide, we offer design consultation, system integration, project management, supply several different products, and do ongoing maintenance. So that's a little bit about us and what we do. If you want to go to the next slide, which would be up for a while. Joining us in a moment are 2 people I'm very excited to have here. Mayor Dan Matheson of the City of Stratford and Delia Campbell of Festival Hydro. But first, a little bit about them. Dan Matheson is in his 5th term as mayor of the City of Stratford and has sat on municipal council since 1995. He is past chair of Ontario Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, past chair of King's University College at Western University, chair of the Stratford Police Services Board, a member of the board of directors of Festival Hydro and Rhizome Networks, and the Shakespeare Stratford Festival. Dan is also a governor of the board of iCanada and a board member of Hampton Financial Corporation. In 2015, Dan was awarded the Alumni Award of Excellence from Master of Public Administration, local government program at Western University. He was also the 2016 Western University Public Administration Distinguished Practitioner in Residence, lecturing on governance and innovation in public institutions. In 2012, Dan was chosen by the Canadian Advanced Technology Alliance to receive the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, paying tribute to community leaders whose endeavors have set them apart as technology innovators. As well, Dan received the Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee Medal in 2002 for public service. Dan has received an ICD.D designation through the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Guelph and a Master of Public Administration degree from the University of Western Ontario. And the other person joining us is Delia Campbell. She joined the Festival Hydro Rhizome Networks about 3.5 years ago, having previously served as a CIO at a school board. Her focus at Festival Hydro is on the security of IT operations to ensure no impact to the energy grid and driving efficiencies within the organization using technology solutions. Rhizome Networks focuses on the provision of community-based connectivity services and strengthening the technology offerings within the City of Stratford to attract commerce and innovation to the city. Delia is a computer science graduate from the University of Ulster, which is in Northern Ireland, and has several certifications through the Office of the Government of Commerce in the UK, particularly in the areas of risk management, project management, portfolio management, and the ITIL service management focused on IT strategy and operations. So Mayor Dan and Delia, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. I could tell you a little bit about Stratford's journey, and then I'm going to turn it over to Delia to talk about the overall network in the city, and then we can talk about outcomes we're hoping to achieve. But for Stratford to get in the technology business, we decided back in 1997 that we wanted to be a community that embraced ICT. It was called 2010 and Beyond, was our strategic plan. And through the early 2000, late 1990s, when hydro consolidation was happening in the province of Ontario, we bought the hydro assets of 6 other communities so we could ensure we had a large enough electric utility that put us in good stead. With that, we began laying dark fiber throughout our entire community, some 80 kilometers of dark fiber, and Delia can talk about how it's become lit over the last number of years. And we continued to move in that journey and sought ways to differentiate ourselves. Stratford's economy, we're a city of 35,000. We welcome 1.5 million visitors a year. 40% of them come from the US, and we have 500,000 people attend the Stratford Shakespeare Festival a year. So we have the dichotomy of, in the summer, people complain about commute times, and in the winter, they wish there was somebody there to slow them down. So along the way, we have embraced ICT as a way for the city to bridge the gap between small communities and, of course, larger urban centers, but also as a way to drive economic performance for our community, which, of course, raises the social good. And when we're looking at different technologies, when we did the smart meters in 2009 as part of the province of Ontario's program, we decided not to use yesterday's technology, which was a megahertz radio system. We decided not to use a cellular chip in each one of the 18,000 hydrometers we operate. We decided to actually build ubiquitous Wi-Fi over the entire community. And that then allowed us to do a number of other things, which of course was to become the home of the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, which tests autonomous cars in the province of Ontario. We're the only city certified to do that by the province. That is because we have the technology. And with that, we decided that the Miovision solution was important for us. Delia, why don't I turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about the technology and the ubiquitous Wi-Fi and the fiber, and then I can come back to what I hope some of the outcomes are.
Okay, that's fine. So basically within the city of Stratford, we have over 50 kilometers of dark fiber laid throughout the city, which feeds over 300 Wi-Fi access points in the city. We use a mesh technology. That means that we run our fiber direct to what we call root node fiber IPs, and then we mesh the repeater nodes to them using that fiber backhaul. In addition to that, so as Mayor Dan raised, the premise of this Wi-Fi network was to support the smart meters being installed by Festival Hydro. We've kind of taken the infrastructure that we have in place and we've transformed that into a revenue generator for us here in the city. We sell residential Wi-Fi services to a lot of the customers here in Stratford. We sell non-contract based fiber or Wi-Fi connectivity for as low as $1.25 a day on a no contract terms basis. We also connect a number of businesses over the Wi-Fi network using a slightly different type of connection, and we're able to offer them up to a 50-50 symmetrical connection to support their POSs, etc., in their businesses using that Wi-Fi backhaul.
Okay, if I could just maybe just ask a couple questions here, or just one. Mayor Dan, why was it important for you to bring all this latest technology into the city? Like, what was your personal
well, really what it really came down to is we wanted to drive innovation in government that allowed us to continue to offer a high level of service at the most cost-effective way to do so. And technology has that ability to help us do that. But it also allowed us to start recruiting what I call next generation leadership, whether it be in the world of education or within business, to the community. Because we put the Wi-Fi in place, we had actually recruited the University of Waterloo to build their digital media school in Stratford. With that, we also became the home to the Royal Bank of Canada National Data Center. So we started finding ways to do it by using technology. And the reason we want to have the Miovision technology in Stratford was really because DSRC, dedicated short-range communication for vehicles, better traffic modeling for what we can and can't program in, and better data modeling. We would like to really build a 3D model of our city, and it starts with understanding traffic and patterns within it. And that's really one of the reasons why we look to Curtis McBride and the team at Miovision to be our partners.
Okay. Now, there was a pilot, I believe. So how did that get started, and how many intersections did you start with, and kind of what did it look like?
So the pilot program started with 6 intersections, all in the downtown core. If you've ever been to Stratford, you know that we have one intersection that has about 5 legs to it. So it's an awkward one, and it allowed us to start looking at traffic patterns for theater, after theater performances, end of day. It also gave us pedestrian count and some of the things we were looking for. And then from there, we were able to model better what it meant for us to be able to move people through the area. It also has given us a better understanding of what we could then lead into with other technologies, taking that data count and through open data, giving our businesses a sense of how many people are going by on a regular basis and at what time and at what speeds. The speeds help us with regards to traffic enforcement with police, but also within neighborhood development programs that we want to look at.
Okay. And I believe right now, I think there's 27 intersections that are now connected with the Miovision equipment and the DSRC radios. Was there a time frame that you were looking at doing this? So you got the funding through AVEN to do this, but was there a time frame involved that it had to be done, or was that a factor?
No, really not a factor. There was not a timeline that anybody put on it. It's one that we self-imposed upon ourselves. If you sit and wait too long, some of these opportunities start to pass us by. And we felt that it was the next logical step in our development of building a 3D model and understanding the traffic pattern. The other thing that helped us, the reason AVEN provided the funding was because they recognized the DSRC component was going to be key for us being able to start testing autonomous vehicles that have been on our road, manned as they are. But then the next part of it will be Project Arrow, which is the second phase of this, which is to build an electric autonomous vehicle. Basically electric, but the plan is to have it also include autonomous by the end of 2023.
And that was what I was actually just going to ask, was the next steps. I believe there's a shuttle or something that you have plans for that.
We had a shuttle planned to be deployed in the city of Stratford. Because of the pandemic this year, that slowed us down, and that's one of the reasons, unfortunately, that we could not complete this year. But next year there will be unmanned shuttles actually taking tourism visitors from the downtown of Stratford to the theater. And unfortunately this year, because of the pandemic, that phase of the project was scrubbed.
Okay. All right. I don't know if there's any other questions coming
Brian,
in.
I've got some questions from the chat. If I can jump in,
definitely.
maybe ask some of those.
Yep.
Sure. So Dan, kind of continuing on that topic that you just mentioned, a question from our participants here today is, how has COVID-19 impacted your general focus or the near-term focus, and what do you see as being some of the biggest challenges related to COVID-19 that you will be facing both this year and in the coming years?
So the first thing that impacted it is that all non-essential spending has been suspended, capital spending. So this program, well, I would say it's important. It probably doesn't meet there with providing the basic social services to our residents. So it's, of course, suspended for the balance of this year. Depending on the fiscal challenge that we face, and right now we're in a deficit of about $3.5 million heading into the last quarter of the year, we will look at not proceeding with any capital spend in the first 2 quarters of next year that is non-essential. Because this network is already in place, and because we have funding from the federal government for the shuttles, It is our intent if the Stratford Festival opens next year that we will provide the shuttle. Right now, though, if they do open, they're projected to only sell 120,000 tickets, and we're expecting only about 400,000 visitors to Stratford, roughly 28% of what we normally would.
And I guess, like, you know, when it comes to informing or working with the public and your citizens, this is a different question now. How do you keep Stratford, you know, the inhabitants and the citizens informed, you know, both in terms of what your short-term strategies are, but how you're implementing, and how do you ensure that you have what is public support for a lot of these initiatives?
So one of the challenges is, as much as we publicize it through traditional means of newspaper articles, websites, social media, people always want to know, how does it affect them? So we try to raise awareness with individuals, giving open houses and such to give them some knowledge of is out there. But it's tough to get people engaged. It's really, I think many of us see it now. It's kind of that lifestyle. If it doesn't impact me tomorrow, I'll worry about it until it does. And so we've really just tried to use information opportunities. When we have the autonomous testing vehicles in Stratford, they are completely labeled. We advertise them on the days they're going to be there. We've had them available for people to get in. We put them at the malls, at the arenas, at the senior center, taken them to schools, tried to make sure that there's opportunities for people to gather information and, of course, understanding with it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'll invite anyone else with questions. Now is a good time to throw them into the chat. If they're for Dan or Delia or Brian or Nadeem or even myself, please feel free to submit those now via your question panel, and I will start helping us actually get through all these right now. So maybe this is a question, I'm not sure if this is for Delia, Dan, or Brian, whoever is able to answer this. What is Stratford's kind of approach to traffic controller technology? Are you using the controllers to collect data? What systems are you using to collect data, and how much of that is dependent on the traffic controllers?
I would say that'd be a best question for Brian. I'm a mile wide and an inch deep on this one. So over to Brian.
Yeah, so the data collection is coming through the Miovision Smart Sense and 360 camera. And at that leg that you were talking about, Dan, which is a very interesting intersection, there's two intersections. It's Erie and Ontario, and I can't remember the next one that's just up from it. Downey, that's right. There's one controller that's smack dab in the middle of these two, basically 5-leg intersections, and it's controlling everything. You have the intersection blocked off for pedestrians in the middle, so they can't cross there. So one way, it's a very big intersection, but there's two approaches to it. And so we actually put two devices in that one cabinet, but all the data collection is coming from the camera, and also pulling the controller signal phasing and timing.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian. Here's a question for Dan. How do you think about data governance? Specifically, how do you handle keeping data, storing data, and keeping the public aware of what data that you have?
So right now, we're treating all data as proprietary to the city. Delia can talk about one of the models we've been approached on recently with regard to a data cooperative. So Delia, why don't you take us through the proposal we had received in the statement?
Yeah, so just really at a high level, because we don't have all of the finer details thrashed out between the consultant that we've engaged. However, we're working with the multiple parties that typically partner on initiatives like this, such as the city, Rhizome Networks, which is technically the IT innovation arm of the city's IT infrastructure, the economic development cooperative here in Stratford, and we're working through how we best put that framework in place and what does the data sharing look like, particularly as we start to focus on the cybersecurity elements around the DSRC implementation.
Perfect, thank you. I have a question here for me, which is for Miovision. And I guess, Brian, you can feel free to chime in on this one too. How is the performance in adverse weather conditions, such as snowstorms? So it's a really good question. I'll kind of take you through the technology answer, and then I'll let Brian comment on the real world. But the way that we kind of do all of our computer vision technology is through computer vision and machine learning. And what that actually does is it allows us to have a very broad approach to how we ingest data. And, seeing something like a car in a snowstorm, for example, a white, my dad always had this joke, like, it looks like a polar bear in a snowstorm. Traditional systems, if you're talking about a white car and a white background, it's true, you really can't see much there, especially if you're just looking for something like pixel differences. That's background subtraction and some older technologies. But with our system, we actually teach vehicles what cars look like in the snow. So one of the benefits of our deployments is that we have a lot of really great Canadian customers. And what we do is we train our system to learn what it looks like to see a car in the snow. So, both we have these giant training algorithms that allow us to not only do that in real time and produce outcomes and then deploy those learnings back out to intersections about all weather conditions. But then if there's a specific challenge or a specific intersection that's having difficulty, we can actually zero in on just that intersection as well and produce new training sets and new technologies that address the challenges of a very specific data set or a very specific intersection. So that's a little bit on the technology, whereas, I'll let Brian talk a little bit about what deployments look like in the real world.
Yeah, so basically it's true what you were saying there, but the reality of it is if you can't see it, you can't detect it. So there will be times, regardless of what technology you're using, where the conditions are so bad it can't detect it. In the case of Miovision, it does a very good job at that. And also what will happen, so there's two kinds of things. If there was an approach that it just couldn't detect, for example, it would put that particular approach into recall until it could see it again and then start doing detection and actuation. And if the whole intersection, say, got wiped out by fog or heavy snow, it would put it all into recall until it could do detection and then bring that back up into actuation. And the nice thing about the Miovision offering is that there is a video recording option that you can enable or disable. So you can actually go back and you knew it was a very bad snowstorm the night before. You could actually pull up the video and see how actually the system was doing detection through that snowstorm and see if there was any tweaks that need to be made.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. The other thing that we also do is we have advanced failure modes. So let's say there is a condition where, if you can't see it and it's genuinely a whiteout or those kind of conditions, then we're able to fail safely on just those movements, for example. So let's say it's a northbound movement and that's where the issue is. We can detect that, go into a fail-safe mode, and leave any other approach that's actually working, still working, and just kind of have that one approach be put into a failure state. So, as important it is to work in all scenarios where possible. Where it isn't, it's equally important to be able to have the technology work in a safe way when the technology is not able to say see in those conditions. I have another question here for Nadeem. Nadeem, how do you think 5G plays into all of this? Do you think, the question here is, do you think 5G will take off? I'm sure you'll have a strong opinion on that, but maybe talk to the audience here about how you see 5G fitting into both the Stratford strategy, but maybe just other Canadian cities in general more broadly. I think you'll have to unmute yourself, Nadeem, if you're currently muted.
Okay, great.
There you go.
So yeah, so I'm not a 5G expert, but as an organization, we're definitely investing heavily in 5G, and we do believe that the future of smart cities will only be enhanced by 5G, and what 5G will bring is just better connectivity, faster speeds, lower latency, and the ability to kind of collect and leverage even more data. And so, all of the things that we're able to do today only get enhanced with 5G, and I do believe that it, smart cities is one of the primary drivers for for Telus investing in 5G in cities, because it does help us to continue to kind of work together and build towards kind of more sustainable future using technology.
Awesome, thank you. I guess another question for maybe this is for Delia or for Dan. How do you think about sharing data, either with federal research departments that work on ITS or universities? How do you think about the way that you share data into other systems or to other parties that might be interested in using it?
So I don't know if Dan wants to respond to this one. My perception on this is the city of Stratford is invested in the smart city building of the future, and really we've already taken steps to engage some support into that governance framework together, because we want to co-learn and co-share with all technology players.
Yeah, we are definitely a partner of any level of government. We believe at the municipal level, we do what we call co-opetition, which is we cooperate in competition with other cities for investment. But any research enabled project, we want to make sure we share the information. It betters all of us, and it makes better public policy in the end, whether it be federal or provincial.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess a question for me, which is, how is the Miovision solution open? So we strive to make all of our solutions and what we deploy in terms of our platform open by default. So that means we encourage others to develop with our platform, to integrate with our platform. We have a series of both data and physical APIs on our devices that can be leveraged by other partners for things like actuation or priority. Our goal is to really build a partner of an ecosystem full of partners like Stinson and Telus here today, who are focused on using the Traffic Link platform to derive outcomes for their city partners. And we believe that by having an open technology stack and by having a platform that encourages that, we're really helping many people come together to build the Internet of Cities and smart cities. And we really do believe that's only possible if everyone's open to working together, is able to share data, have open integrations, and allow cities like Stratford the ability to build on their platforms without being locked into any sort of one proprietary protocol or one proprietary vendor type. No one company can build the smart city alone. So that's why it's so important for us to have all of our technology be open and interoperable and able to share data and inputs both in and out. All right. So Steve asks if he's just curious how the actual data flows and how the back end works. So with the Traffic Link system, you deploy the infrastructure, so the camera and the compute and the connectivity at the edge. That would then travel over the Telus network, so Telus Fiber, Telus Cellular, to the Miovision cloud, where that is then processed and stored. And then the city has access to both the data in the cloud and video in the cloud, as well as any sort of data APIs. So if they had their own systems, or let's say they had their own CMS, they could also just tie in all the data and alerting into those as well. We do also allow configuration in terms of what gets stored. So some of our customers store video, some don't. It all comes down to what is the kind of privacy guidelines within that city, and we can make the technology and the architecture work kind of whatever works for that city. Just going through a few other questions here. So a lot about data sharing. I think that's probably all the questions I had here in this case. I'm just going to go through my other chat window and make sure. Here's a question, I guess for me, the partnership between Miovision, Telus, and Stinson, is that being deployed outside Canada? So Stinson, Telus, they're our Canadian partners, In the United States, we do have a different set of partners, and this technology is being deployed in the United States as well. Customers like Detroit have over 450 intersections connected with us, but Telus and Stinson and Miovision are our partners here in Canada specifically. So we're going to end today with the final poll, which is a little bit of a real-time judgment on how we did. And the poll question is, how useful was the information provided in today's webinar? So we'll let you get your voice out there and heard, and then we'll wrap up here with our guests. So please go ahead and share your opinions. All right, it looks like the majority of people have voted, so we'll close that out and share it. So it looks like it's nice to see. Very useful is the majority of the votes, ranging into fairly to useful to slightly useful. The people who it was not useful at all, I apologize if this wasn't useful, and please connect with me after if there's another way or some other way that you'd love to see this information presented, or things that you would like to learn. So we'll go ahead and hide that. So just to wrap up, and I'll pass it back over to Janneke. I'd just love to thank everyone that's been on the presentation here with me today. Nadeem from Telus, Brian from Stinson, thank you so much for joining me to host today. And then of course our guests, Dan and Delia, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share your priorities and your story with us. We really value it, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
And I echo that sentiment. It's Janneke here. A big round of applause for Matt and Shannon in the background from Miovision. Excellent webinar today. I learned a lot. I hope our participants did as well. The recording of today's webinar will be featured on the ITS Canada website probably this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning, and you will receive an email with the link. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon, and stay safe, but stay connected.